Hello, welcome to the Hail to the King podcast. This is Magnus. I'm here with
Mark.
And today's episode, we're doing The Gunslinger, which was the first book in the Dark Tower series.
All hail to the king.
Hail to the King. So, this is my maybe 8th time, maybe 9th time through the series. I've individually read the book a couple times on my own, just, wanting to only read The Gunslinger and not read the whole adventure, just because it's a cool book. It's got some really neat visuals that I've kind of come to appreciate more as I read it more. It feels a lot different than the next books in the series. I think Stephen King mentions that he wrote it when he was like 19-ish.
18 or 19. So he hasn't come... He, at this time, didn't mature into his craft. Mm-hmm. Although that doesn't mean that it's not an enjoyable and well-written book.
You can tell that his... where he wants the series to go. He's being very careful with his wording. He's got some. It reminds me a lot of like H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe, and it's very descriptive language.
Yeah,
and once you get to book 2, once you get past book 1. Book 2 takes on kind of a completely new feel. It's like a different director, different storytellers behind the helm. It's very straightforward. You've got characters that are introduced that you can relate to. I guess
it's true.
We'll leave it at that. But
although it is awesome, 1 and 2, the reread ability of book 1, The Gunslinger, it's like a good cheese. It just gets better with time.
It does. It gets better every single time I read it. So I'm going to admit to something. The very first time I read the Gunslinger, I quit halfway through. So I didn't really understand what I was reading.
Like it kept tear in my eye.
It kept skipping back and forth, like timeline wise, and it was confusing. It would skip to Roland's childhood, and it would one minute he's talking to a dude, a farmer, telling him stories of his adventure. The next minute he's in Tull, having his Tull adventure, and it skipped around so much that it was kind of hard to follow. And I just said, you know what, I'm gonna set this aside and come back to it after I've read a little more King. I'm not quite here yet. So I read a few more Stephen King books. I think I read The Stand and Salem's Lot, which ended up being super important to read Salem's Lot at some point if you're a Dark Tower fan. But anyways, that's kind of the intro to the book. Okay, real quick, what was your first time reading it?
My first time reading it, I remember exactly where I was. Mm-hmm. I was riding a little lawnmower. I was working for the city on a little lawnmower, listening to Stephen King's
cutting the purple grass.
Cutting the purple grass. No, that was my first time reading it. Mm-hmm. But I did read other things before I read The Gunslinger, so I think I went into it like kind of trusting that it would just get more awesome as it went on, and it did.
And you have a background of being very familiar with like fantasy. A lot of fantasy reading. What's that guy? The Shannara Chronicles.
Yeah, Sword of Shannara.
The Wheel of Time.
And
freaking
before,
Way of Kings.
Well, before Brandon Sanderson.
Okay, before him, yeah.
Got so... we could talk about that another time, my opinions of Brandon Sanderson. But before I stopped liking him as much, I read a lot of stuff from him.
Mm-hmm. But so maybe the introduction to you was a little easier. But for me, I was like wanting to read zombie stories. I think my first Stephen King book that I actually ended up reading all the way through was Cell, which it's a pretty cool book. The beginning of it is amazing. The scene in the airport and everything.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It kind of putters out towards the end, but I still like it a lot. And it was my first Stephen King book, front to cover to cover. And, anyways, but when I came back to this book finally and I felt like I was ready to read, The Gunslinger, I loved it. And the end of the book, when he finally catches up, and they have that kind of meeting up on the mountains.
The palaver.
Yeah, like that meeting blew my mind. And I'm just like, this world that he's building in this book series is incredible, and I want to do it. I want to join Roland on his quest. I'm there, you know? So
Yeah.
I loved it the first time, and like I said, it gets better every single time I read it, like a fine cheese.
Oh yeah, it
When you read that
really
cheese.
does, because you pick out so many things that you think for some reason they're introduced later, but he introduces so much at the beginning.
Yeah, and going back
this
on a
book.
reread is just like, look at there, you know, and yeah, he did write it originally, you know, back in whenever, and he visited it back in, I think 2001 is when they came out with the
revised version. Yeah.
edition, which added a few things, took a few things out, just changed a few little things, which, you know, honestly, I think we should do an episode sometime down the road where we compare the two. We read them back to back. and
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
That'd be cool. I dig it. So if you guys agree, let us know. If not, we'll do whatever we want anyways. So
Exactly.
but feedback is cool and always appreciated. It's a joke.
we
Anyways.
love you guys.
So let's get to kind of what happens in this book. It starts off with the man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed.
The best start to anything.
The best start to anything. It's a great pickup line, you know.
It's so true.
Like yeah.
It's as iconic as in the beginning, you know.
Yeah, in the beginning, God created man.
I hope that's not terrible to say. Am I going to get struck down?
No, you're good. It's sunny out, right?
It's sunny out. But it is, for me at least, that iconic. Mm-hmm. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. And then, right there, it's almost that first line. It's almost like a summary of everything that's going to happen.
Yep. I like that you don't really. It doesn't give you a lot of time to. You don't know how long he's been pursuing the man in black.
It could be forever.
Yeah, it could have been, you know, who knows. But he's pursuing Walter O'Dim.
Yep.
Or is it Broadcloak? Martin Broadcloak.
Martin Broadcloak, Walter O'Dim.
We'll get to Martin Broadcloak and Walter O'Dim and Randall Flagg later. But anyways, he's pursuing who he knows as Walter O'Dim across the desert. And it starts off with him kind of describing the desert, which again can be very cryptic if you're not really expecting the type of language he uses.
Yeah.
You know? And it's great listening to it again. But anyways, he gets to this village or this little hut where there's a farmer named...
Let's see if we remember.
I can't remember. Again, I've read the book freaking like 10 times.
Zoltan is
the bird. And you give it to me.
No, I don't remember either.
You don't remember any? Oh, man. So anyways, he gets to the hut where he meets up with this farmer who offers him, you know, food and lodging for the night, you know, kind of thing. Just passing through. And Roland asks him, has the man in black been through here? And he's like, yes, he has, you know, same as you. I fed him and whatever. He's a wizard, right? You know, he mentions a story about the rabbits falling out of his sleeve. You know, he magically produces these rabbits from his sleeves.
Kind of like a magician,
it's
except the
cool.
rabbits, you know, dead, ready to eat.
Skinned and ready to eat. Imagine that at a birthday party. Someone pulls a skinned rabbit out of the hat. Randall
Throws
Flagg.
it on the Barbie.
Dude, that would be a really funny meme, you know? Just the man in black holding up a skinned rabbit from a magic hat.
All the kids are
I love
screaming.
it. If one of you guys wants to do that, send it to us, tag us. That'd be hilarious. Anyways, so he gets to there. He's talking to Brown. His name is Brown.
Yes.
So he's talking to Brown and telling him the story of Tull, which, you know, they're just passing the time. This is what you do. There wasn't TV. There wasn't, anything cool like that. So you just tell each other stories. So he tells him the story about entering Tull, which was a little Western type, you know, honky tonk town. He goes in, you know, buys some cheeseburgers, which, you know, or hamburgers, I guess. And
No cheese, unfortunately.
And ends up hooking up with the owner of the the diner. What would you call it? A honky-tonk bar,
Yeah.
little restaurant. Ends up hooking up with her for a few nights and just kind of chilling in the town. And then he meets Sylvia Pittston.
Yeah. So he meets, well, he does find out that the man in black had been through the town and that he had raised someone from the dead.
Oh, yeah. Mort, right?
Yep. Nort. Raised someone from the dead, and then he kind of feels he can't move on from this town. There's something that needs to be done.
Taken care of. His gunslinger duties are calling to him. He can't leave before he figures out what he's got to do.
And so Sylvia Pittston is this preacher woman, this holy woman, who she tops like 300 pounds.
By the way, the Mist, right?
Yeah.
What's her name? Mrs. Carmody, right?
Mrs. Carmody.
We've talked about this before. Mrs. Carmody in the Mist. She kind of is the religious one who riles everyone up in the town, to child sacrifice and whatever. And she's kind of like a twinner.
Yeah. No, that's actually a connection I never made before. That's perfect.
Oh, yes. So very, very much they have the same feel, which I love when Stephen King does that. It's like echoes of his old characters. You can think of them as twinners. You can think of them as, you can think of him as a hack who's a cookie cutter who uses characters over and over because he's not creative. But we all know that that's ignorant.
That is not true. Not true.
I like the twinners. Anyways,
I like
continue.
twinners.
Sylvia Pittston.
So Sylvia Pittston...
she's pregnant.
Yeah, she is pregnant. Well, even before the pregnancy, she's just a huge woman who Roland... He feels like... very attracted to
a strange sexual attraction towards.
It's very interesting because she's enormous. Not that big women can't be beautiful. I'm not don't want to hate, but he feels a strange attraction to her and goes to find out that the man in black slept with her. It's unclear if he impregnated her or what, because he
talks about having the son of the Crimson King.
Yeah, she has the spawn of the Crimson King in her womb.
He borrowed a turkey baster.
Oh gosh!
Right, just carries it around in his belt. A turkey baster with a little package from the Crimson King.
Yeah, he's quick on the draw.
Oh, anyways, that's disgusting. Hey,
that is filthy.
So Roland then proceeds to, tell her she's wrong. Tell her that the man in black and the Crimson King and whatever, you have a demon inside you, woman.
Yeah.
It's like, let me destroy it. And he uses his gun, which was forged from the steel of the Excalibur, right?
Yeah. Of Arthur.
From Arthur Eld.
Arthur Eld is what he's known as, King Arthur, but...
So, Roland comes from a line of gunslingers. They're like knights in this world. Mm-hmm. I guess we should have mentioned that. So they're like knights from... that hand down the guns to generations and generations, and they travel the lands and help people, just like a traveling knight would.
Yeah.
So, he uses his gun to give her an abortion, right? Straight up.
But without killing her.
Yeah, without killing her. And I don't know if it has to do with the power of the gun in particular and the steel it's made from.
It's a little unclear because obviously he doesn't shoot it or else she would have died too. But yeah, it seems like maybe the purity and the fact that it's the Crimson King's son, kind of playing along with the idea that silver kills werewolves.
Yeah.
So it's maybe like pure metal or special metal kills demons,
which
is what she has in her.
And then he kind of leaves her area, goes back to do his own thing, and the next morning, what's his name? The piano player, Sheb.
Which you got to find out is
Sheb will come in later in the series, but you find out that he was from a story in Roland's past where he... How would you say that?
Well, okay, so he shows up in book 4.
Uh-huh.
And this doesn't give anything away. Sheb shows up in book 4 as the piano player at the Traveler's Rest.
Mm-hmm.
And so he witnessed like Roland's like early years as a gunslinger.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say it that way. That's how I would say it. And he ends up showing up again in Tull, and Roland remembers him.
Yeah. And I guess in the time that passed from the night that he visited Sylvia Pittston to the next day, she riled up the town, interloper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she tells all the townspeople that Roland is the interloper, and he's
which is essentially Satan. Roland is the devil.
She gets them to attack him, and he has to fight off every man, woman, and child in Tull, except for what's the name of the girl, the restaurant owner?
Oh my gosh, it's gone out of my head. Sorry, guys.
I know.
I just finished it like 5 minutes ago.
But so
Allie.
So the man in black gives her a number, or a key phrase. Says, if you tell Nort. Gosh dang it. Mort comes later. If you tell him 19,
he's the guy that was raised from the dead.
He will tell you what happened and what he saw after being dead.
Yeah, and the afterlife,
all the secrets of death and whatever. So he plants this seed of self-destruction.
Because he also said if he tells you, you're gonna go mad. You're gonna go insane.
Yeah.
And so Roland that next morning, the town comes to attack him, and somebody has Allie. Mm-hmm. And she's just like crying. She's like, Roland, please kill me.
I said 19.
I said 19.
Kill me now.
It's too much.
And no hesitation. Boom.
He mercy shoots her straight in the head.
And kills Sheb, the piano player, as well. Which he had previously broken his hands, like his wrists or something. But because he was in love with Allie. Anyways. So he then starts his massacre, his mass shooting of Tull. And all the townspeople are coming at him with chair legs, with clubs, with knives, a meat fork in the ass.
Which is awesome. A little kid actually does the only damage. It's a deep cut on his calf.
I know the knife that's thrown that hits him in the head with the hilt.
Yeah,
that's pretty dang lucky. But it's cool. Again, it's Ka. Right?
It is what it is.
The handle hit him. It was meant to. But he kills them all. And there's some really cool artwork in the book. I love that picture of him standing over all the bodies, like the trail of bodies.
I do like this, and I think they did this really well in the movie. And I think we're going to talk about the movie in a later, like the Dark Tower movie in a later episode. But I like the part in the book where he's changing the cartridges in his gun
burned
so fast that he could smell the calluses on his thumbs, like on his fingers being burned. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to be ridiculously fast to be able to do that.
Yeah. And
I love that. And I think they represented that really well in the movie. Mm-hmm. Apart from, gripes that people have with it as a whole.
The gunfighting, the action scenes in the movie are great, by the way.
Yeah.
So anyways, then that's kind of just the story. And then he leaves the Brown's hut and heads out to continue his trek across the desert. And, dude, honestly, one moment. All right, so I'm going to interrupt, and we had a brief non-recorded powwow about where we wanted to go with the book club episodes for the Dark Tower. We really enjoy talking about it and discovered how much fun it was to go over again. So I think what we're going to do, we're running out of time personally, so we're going to stop here. About a 20-minute episode is pretty good. We're going to come back and pick up from where we left off, which is the way station.
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty good place to stop, and then we'll go over the rest of the book.
Go over the rest of the book, and then probably from there, go where it leads us. We're going to do some little deep dive episodes where we talk about characters, where we talk about specific, the meeting on the Golgotha, right?
And also where we show some connections between this one and the other books.
And
if
like
you haven't read the other ones, don't listen to those episodes.
Some spoiler-filled episodes. And then we also are going to potentially do a movie episode where we just talk about the movie in comparison to the book. And sometime down the road, talk about the original versus the revised edition. Just some little things like that, shorter episodes.
If you guys have any, recommendations on something you want to hear, that specifically the Dark Tower or anything really, then feel free to let us know.
Another thing that we're going to be looking for down the road is we want to talk about tower journeys in general. Like, if anyone has any cool stories of when they were reading the Dark Tower series, whether it was waiting for the books for years and years or binging through them all, any insights, personal experiences, share that stuff with us. Send it to us on Instagram. Send it to us, tell us a story in the comments, and we might end up reading some of those out loud, because tower journeys are great, and I like hearing about them, with everyone's first trip to the tower.
Oh yeah,
So
it's worthwhile to.
Yeah, so we're send us those whenever you feel like it. We'll ask for them probably all the time because we love it, and we'll catch you next time at the way station.
And remember, there are other worlds than these.